This episode of I Work For Him is sponsored by SaferNet, Patriot Mobile, and the U.S. Christian Chamber 2026 Expo, found online at swc2026.com, code I Work For Him. You've tuned into I Work For Him, the voice of collaboration for the faith and work movement.
And we are your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and our mission is to inspire every workplace believer to recognize their workplace as their ministry place, where they work with God every day. What can that look like in your workplace? Well, let's find out right now.
9 years ago, on July 28th, 2016, Martha and I interviewed Cassie Lehman from Virginia. Cassie wrote a book called I Found Jesus in the Stock Market. I read the book, did the interview, and my life has never been the same. You see, Cassie explained all about biblically responsible investing and how our dollars talk if we keep investing in companies that invest their dollars in causes and activities that are contrary to biblical principles and standards. Then we are officially funding the kingdom of the enemy. We got motivated and totally pumped. After that show, I called my buddy and financial advisor, Luke Andrews, and asked him to read the book. I told him that I want my portfolio to reflect the principles of biblically responsible investing. I told Luke that if he couldn't do that, I'd have to find another advisor. I didn't want to. Luke read the book, and history tells the rest of the story. Luke eventually left his broker-dealer and found one that promoted only biblically responsible investing and shifted all his clients to biblically responsible investing over the next couple of years. And for about 5 years, Luke appeared on this show promoting biblically responsible investing every month as being a major sponsor of I Work For Him. Over the last 5 years, Luke has seen a continued transformation of his life and his way of serving his clients. And through his relationship with biblically responsible investing and Inspire Investing, serving as an Inspire advisor, we wanted to follow up on Luke and see how he's doing. So we invited him back to share what God has been doing in his faith while he lives it out at work as an Inspire advisor. Luke Andrews, welcome back to I Work For Him.
It's so good to be here. When you had asked me a few weeks ago, let's do it again. I was excited, and I've been excited, for this time, and just can't wait to share all the updates because it's been a little bit. I do miss Dave Cruz. So I'll make sure I share this with Dave and he'll hear our shout out today. But I had lunch with Dave. For those that are just listening to me for the first time, back in when we first started out, really once a week on a radio show. You guys we'd come in once a month, and it was the Luke and Dave of Bel Air Wealth Management.
That's
Luke
right.
and Dave from Bel Air Wealth Management, online at Bel Air Wealth Management. And Dave would say, .com.
Yeah. So anyway, I had lunch with Dave last week, and he's doing great. He's his daughter Tamara's gotten into the business, and they're doing great. And he's enjoying life. But anyway, we're here to talk about some updates and some exciting things. But I'm grateful to be here.
So, Luke, did you realize it had been 9 years since that life-changing conversation?
No, I haven't, because I remember, and because it's a story that I tell when I'm sharing this whole biblically responsible journey with prospects or people or whoever wants to listen, is you gave me the book, and I'm a skeptic by nature, whether that's good or bad. I mean, I think sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. When it's bad, God has to keep bringing other people in their life to push you along, but having that skeptic nature, I read the book, and then I shared with you, hey, I read the book, and that's kind of how I left it for a little bit. And I did leave the book on my desk, because whether or not I wanted to believe what was in the book or not, I had been building a business for the past several years on, just being a good Christian financial advisor. And there's a lot of good Christian financial advisors out there, not necessarily giving good biblical investment advice, but just good Colossians 3:23 financial advisors. Work hard at whatever you do as if you're working for the Lord and not for man. So it wasn't, an immediate change for me. I read the book, and I put it on the desk. But shortly after that, again, God has a way of using other people as well. Brought in another person, and he had asked me, "Hey, am I invested in whatever it was at the time?" I don't recall exactly what he asked me, but it had something to do with biblically aligned or faith-based investing. So this time I went back and read the book again, but I studied the scriptures that were laid out in the book. I started praying about it. And this is where God started transforming the way I saw investments, because I was probably like many financial advisors or even potential investors today who hear biblically responsible investing. They're not really too sure about it. They're super comfortable where they're at. There might be some misconceptions on, well, I'm not necessarily profiting from abortions. I'm not really profiting from the distribution of pornography. So really there is this journey that took place the day you gave me the book, but it wasn't like an immediate transformation. It's taken time. And then when you said 9 years, I'm like, holy cow, it's been such a fast 9 years. And so much has happened during those 9 years. I can't wait to share more about it.
Well, and that's the part that I love about the story is how God worked in your heart, because you, like you said, you were building a practice that was based one way because that was the way it's always been done traditionally, and then revealed a new way that would have meant a big shift. And I know we're going to talk about that big shift, but why? Let me ask this question: why don't you think that all Jesus following advisors promote biblically responsible investing? Why do you think there's still a gap?
Well, financial advisors, I got real stories because I've got, several friends and other believers that are in the business. Some look at their secular business as a way to minister, which is awesome. Hallelujah, right? I'm still able to do that as well as focusing my practice on just biblically responsible investing. I pray with our clients. They send me prayer requests, so these are things that we get to do, leading some to the Lord. We have unbelievers that are partnered with us as well and having that influence in their life. So mainly, misinformation, this idea that you can't build a biblically aligned portfolio that's going to keep up with historical returns that they're seeing in their own investment accounts, which is untrue. There's misinformation, or maybe they don't see, if you own an ETF or a mutual fund, an exchange traded fund or a mutual fund, you don't actually own the stock per se, so there's all sorts of ways that, in my opinion, the devil gets in there and just likes to confuse and lie and deceive. So these are actually real conversations that I've had with other advisors who are running their practices, how they're doing as a Colossians 3:23 type financial advisor. So, a lot of it just misinformation. Comfortable is probably another big one. They've had their book of business 10, 15, 20 years. To convert a business like that into a BO. Now, it's absolutely possible. Inspire has several advisors who had huge books, who had been doing what they've been doing for 10, 15 years that have partnered with us. And it is a transformation. But you mentioned it has to happen in the heart. God really has to get a hold of you and hopefully the right people in your life to kind of give you that influence and answer those questions about, what does that look like? What's the process look like? I don't want my clients to have a bunch of taxable gains because we're converting it all to biblically responsible investing. Those are legitimate concerns. But the good news is that there's a process out there. So for any financial advisor who loves the Lord, who is Colossians 3:23, who wants to take this next step and just start praying about and seeking information about BRI, you can contact me directly. I'd be honored to have that conversation, or Inspire in general. So,
and I'll put your contact information in the show notes, Luke, for people so that they can reach out and have a couple of different options. I think it's important before we get too far into this conversation to just explain really quickly, and we can even put some links to some past shows we've done with you where you've gone into more detail, but why essentially it is so important to understand that if we just own general investments, or if we have general investments, that it can actually be supporting things that go against our very biblical principles. Because some people may not even have ever heard this concept before, and I don't want to leave them out of the conversation.
Yeah, well, when you own a stock, okay, and if you own an ETF or a mutual fund or the stock outright, you own shares of stock. And shares of stock gives you an ownership interest in the business. And the Bible has a lot to say about ownership, right? I mean, everything belongs to God. We're just managers, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm an extension of you, Jim and Martha, as managers of what God has asked you to steward. I'm an extension of that stewardship. So when you look at when you start to look at things from a stewardship mentality, I think it changes everything. So when you own a stock, your investment in that company is you want a return on the investment. So you invest in Amazon because you think Amazon's a great online retailer and they're going to make a lot of money for you. They're going to generate a lot of revenues, and that revenue, if the stock is doing well, if the company's doing well, generating high revenues, keeping costs down, nice gross margin, fundamentally they're doing really, really well. The value of your stock goes up, right? That's that return on investment. So that's the connection. Excuse me. That's the connection when you're looking at biblically responsible investing and just stock ownership. Now, some people might say, well, then why do you shop at Amazon if you don't invest in it? Well, consumership is different, right? Amazon sells pornography. They sell an abortion drug. I don't use Amazon as a consumer for those things. I got some muscle milk the other day. That's what I used Amazon for. I don't order pornography, and I don't, pull from their abortion drugs or anything like that. But when you have ownership, whether it's to a mutual fund, which is weighted with some Amazon stock in it, so Amazon does better, the ETF or the mutual fund value goes up as well, you're profiting from that. So anything a company does, whether that's, say, they sell alcohol, gambling, tobacco, pornography, anti-family values, abortion drugs, supporting abortion. There's a lot of companies that after COVID, and all these, after Roe v. Wade, some of their states banned abortions or brought it way down. Well, there's a lot of companies that said, well, we're going to pay for abortion travel, and where does that money come from? It doesn't come out of the sky like where the government prints money. They use the money that they're generating from the profits they're selling from selling pornography, from selling abortion drugs. They're using your investor dollars that you have ownership in to do these things that don't align with biblical values. So there's your problems, right? When you own a stock, whether it's individually or through a mutual fund and exchange traded fund, when the value of that stock goes up, you get a return on that investment, and it's because of what they're selling. So BRI essentially avoids companies that are selling alcohol, gambling, tobacco, abortion, pornography, or even supporting other different philanthropic issues that don't align with biblical values. And then we don't just want to screen out companies. We want to find the best companies, but because we've also found when companies are on a mission, and not necessarily Christian companies, right? We'd love to find those. But companies that are just looking to take care of their employees, they're taking care of their communities, they're taking care of the world, they're making a positive impact. They historically also have, a tendency to perform better because people are holding on to those stocks for more than just the returns. Right. So, yeah.
That's so good. Thank you.
So why do you think everybody listening today, I'm guessing a large majority of people listening today, do not have financial advisors that are investing only by biblically responsible investing standards? So why is it that Jesus followers don't insist on it?
Yeah, it's, communication, right? It's not something financial advisors are preaching. When I do talk to Christian financial advisors, and I ask them, well, have you at least even offered biblically responsible investing to your Christian clients that if they knew that they were profiting from pornography, they would probably be mortified. That's just a transformation in the way you think about things, though, too. Right. Most people, we've always been taught we're just investing for our future. We're just investing for retirement. We've never thought we're investing God's money. And would God be happy with the returns on where those investment dollars are coming from? And, if God says thou shalt not kill, right, one of the 10 commandments, and then we're supporting, and we have Amazon stock. I'm beating up on Amazon today just because Amazon is probably in 90% of our listeners' portfolios, whether they own the stock individually, whether it's in a mutual fund, whether it's in an exchange traded fund. They own Amazon stock. Well, thou shalt not kill is in the Bible. We know that killing is not good. And essentially, abortion is murdering and killing of a baby. So if Amazon is selling the abortion drug, that's part of their revenue. Their revenue dictates what their stock price is doing, and that's what dictates your returns. So it's educational. There's $21 trillion in the household of those who profess to be believers or a Christian. $21 trillion.
Wow.
We could make a huge impact if we had 1% of that, So really it's a messaging thing. It's getting other Christian financial advisors to start having those conversations.
Yeah, just an awareness, which is why we're doing the show today.
Awareness.
Yeah. It's dangerous when we allow most of our input to come from society at large without putting it through a biblical filter. That's what biblical responsible investing does for your investments, and that's why we love the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce. We surround ourselves with people who love business, the Lord, and the truth. The U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce has many different opportunities for members from all over the country to connect and learn. And in 2026, you can attend the SWC, what's that? Spiritual World Citizens, SWC2026.com event that Martha and I will be emceeing in Orlando in April of 2026. Use code IWORKFORHIM to save on your registration. Luke, when you went out there and you said, okay, this is something I want to do, you found Inspire Investing to move your firm to establish where you were going to grow what you were doing under Luke Andrews. What was it about Inspire that said, that's a company I want to walk with?
Well, from the bottom, not the bottom in hierarchy or anything, just I would say from the person who answers our phones to our CEO, Robert Netzley, who you've spoken to, who we've had on the show before, there is a commitment from the bottom to the top, okay, of transforming the way Christians invest God's money. And I didn't have to, I was in a great place with Beller Wealth Management. I love those guys. They're doing great things over there. For me, it just came down to, did I want to create, this biblically responsible movement there, or did I want to join a movement that was set to transform the industry? And that's really the biggest part for me was I wanted to join something that the vehicle was already moving. I wasn't trying to build the vehicle, but it was already moving. And then every single person was committed to changing and transforming the way Christians invest. Plus, we give 50% of our corporate net profits to charity. Right now we're doing church plants in Cuba.
Awesome.
And when I say we, it's Jim and Martha's, right? You're partnered with Inspire. We don't charge you more fees. We just started from the beginning and said, we're giving 50% of net profits away, and you're helping build churches in Cuba. We're also, we made a big donation to LifeWise Academy recently through this Give 50 initiative. LifeWise Academy helps bring biblical education to public schools during school hours, not after school, not before school, not during lunch, but actually a Bible education class to public schools. So every single client that partners with Inspire is a part of that. It's an extension of your own household giving, without you doing anything further. And then the third thing why I joined Inspire is the shareholder engagement. We are the world's largest exchange traded fund money manager. We have 9 exchange traded funds that we have built and offer the general public. The shareholder engagement is what I'm going to talk about next in the Give 50. Shareholder engagement, this is a big deal. Whether you know it or not, Planned Parenthood is losing a lot of their funding, right? But what they're doing is they're starting to use other distributors to distribute the RU486 drug, the mifepristone, that you may have heard of. But like Costco, Albertsons, Kroger, Walgreens, they're all being pressured by the FDA and other institutions to start distributing the abortion drug. Well, we just had a pretty great shareholder engagement strategy for about the last year with Costco. Well, we withdrew their application with the FDA to distribute the mifepristone. That's another extension of what Inspire does. So, when you talk about why Inspire, why I joined, well, let me back up. When I joined Inspire, there was a lot of faith. Jim and Martha, you guys were a big part of that decision. Christine was another big part of you'll help me.
Heartland. Chris
Heartland, yeah.
yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yes.
And some other people were a big part of that decision because Inspire, when I started, I think we were like under 200 million. Mm-hmm. And there was maybe 9 financial advisors. This was way at the beginning when we had a handful of, exchange traded funds, but we had a lot of faith, and today we manage over 3 billion. We're talking
so great.
6 years. We are USA Today listed us just recently in 2025 as the 3rd top registered investment advisory firm in America.
Awesome.
USA Today.
Wow.
I was just looking before I, came on with you guys, and on Friday, Inc. 5000 came out with their fastest growing companies, and we're on it for the 6th year in a row.
Oh, my word.
FA Magazine lists us in 2025 as one of the top RIAs in the country. So, I mean, when I say it was God, you guys know this, right? I took a leap of faith, and God has transformed my business, from where I at when I started a little over 6 years ago. Actually, coming up, six years ago this month is when I started with Inspire, and my business has grown 500%.
Okay,
right?
so I want to talk about this right here, Luke, because there are people listening. Number one, hopefully you're firing up some people that have investments that have never thought about this before. And that we get fired up about talking about it because this is the conversation we've had for years. And it is awareness, and it's letting people know. And we feel responsible for letting people know that there is another way to do things that's more biblical. But let me also encourage our listeners. You may not be in this investment world, but what world are you in where you can make the same difference? Taking that step of faith and saying, God's convicting me about something that isn't right in my industry, and I know there's another way to do it. And I just want to encourage the listeners to try to take that same lesson into their own work and say, what is it that God's been convicting me about that I have not had enough boldness or enough faith or whatever that might be to take that next step? And Luke, you are such a great example of, you didn't know that your business would grow 500 times or whatever, you had no idea, but you said, I know that I don't have a choice. God has convicted me to this, and I need to take this step of faith. And it makes me emotional just thinking about it because, Luke, you were willing to do that no matter what the outcome was. And it has been a very good outcome. And people are catching on. But it's much like when we started I Work for Him. There were very few people talking about even connecting our faith with our work. Now we're talking about connecting our faith with the financial decisions that we're making that are a result of our work. Right? The income that we get that we are stewards of, like you said, I know I'm getting very fired up. Jim's just grinning over here. But that's where we're all at. We all, when we work, we make an income. What do we do with that income? How does it honor God in the way we use it as stewards of what He has given us? And so that is why this conversation is so incredibly important. Okay.
Yeah, Proverbs 15:22, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. When you're facing these decisions on how you can honor the Lord with whatever it is you're doing in your workplace, it's seeking advice. It's getting information from I Work for Him and other resources. Because and then having an attitude of gratitude, right? We're in a place. I know some people probably don't love what they do. They have a tough boss. They're in a tough industry. But understanding that having this attitude of gratitude and being able to display that, because wherever you're at, you're going to be a light. You're going to be the light of darkness, or you're going to be the light of the Lord. And so wherever you find your place, whether you feel like, oh, I can't really make these type of impacts where I'm at. Oh, yes, you can, right?
Yeah.
It's having that gratitude, understanding that God had you there for a reason, and getting counsel,
Yeah, Luke mentions light of darkness. Speaking of darkness, it's so important we protect our devices from the enemy. We want to give a shout out to SaferNet. SaferNet.com is a software package, or an app that you can use to download to protect your phones, your PCs, your iPads, your laptops, everything, not only from viruses, but it's a VPN that keeps the bad people from even knowing where you're at. Internet filters so that your whole staff can be safe in your company. Check it out online. It's super powerful. SaferNet.com. SaferNet.com. We use it for everything we do here at I Work for Him. And if you have one of those links that people send you on one of those emails, you're like, is this real or not? If you click on it, SaferNet will keep you safe. Without it, you may destroy your entire network. Luke, before we go, you have shared so much information, and people are going to want to get in touch with you, which all that information is going to be in the show notes. But what is it you want to say to the financial advisors out there who are like, yeah, but the returns, they're just not as good when you do BRI, and this is too much work to shift over. Speak to the financial advisors listening to the show today.
Yeah, well, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Jim, it's so funny.
I said that.
You used to love saying that. That was like we would say something, and Jim was like, well,
past performance does not guarantee future results. Actually, I'd say past performance is not indicative of future results.
Yeah, so, here's the deal with that is, when I first started on my journey, I started with my own personal accounts, okay? So this is my advice is, don't jump in with both feet. Well, first off, call me. I'll send you a book, Robert Netzley's book. It was just updated, so that biblically responsible book. Any of your listeners who want that book, that you can, as Martha will put my information in the comments, that you just reach out to me and I'll make sure I send you his book, and you can learn more about biblically responsible investing. But for those financial advisors who might be interested is, number one, pray about it, right? Seek counsel. Way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. I mean, there's so much biblical wisdom in Proverbs. So you start searching, you start counseling. Then when God has shown you that this is the way, this is a way that I could be honored, is you start with your own personal accounts, okay? And you'd give it a 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 to 6 month time frame and say, okay, here's the investments that biblically responsible investing offers. Let me see if I can build a portfolio that I would feel comfortable giving to my clients. So that's what I did. I started with my own account, my kids' accounts, and within a few months, I'm like, all right, I can build a portfolio, whether it's conservative or whether it's to the most aggressive. I can build a biblically aligned portfolio. That's number one. And the second thing is, what are the returns looking like? And, some years, the secular benchmark is going to outperform, because they have the Magnificent Seven. That's, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, it's Tesla, it's, all the 7 of the biggest companies in the world. That's the Magnificent Seven. We don't invest in any of that because they all have some issues. That's another conversation for a different day. But when you start looking at historical performances, some years we're going to do better. Some years we're going to do the same. Some years we're going to outperform. Okay. I will say that we also have some sector models, and I'm not going to give returns of our sector model, but our technology model has been absolutely amazing. Okay. And it's way past what the S&P 500 was able to do the last 3 years. Well, 2.5 years, we'll say. So 23, 24, and halfway through 25. Our technology sector model has absolutely been on fire and amazing. Again, past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but we have an outstanding portfolio management team at Inspire that does these things for us. So we're other advisors. So you're not gonna sacrifice returns. Your clients, matter of fact, are going to be more excited about what you're doing for them than what you're giving for them. Investment returns are a part of what we do. It needs to be, but when you're doing things that are honoring the Lord, investment returns aren't secondary. They're important, but they're no longer what you're thinking about all day. And, it's, if the market's up or the market's down, you're fine. Right. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Luke, before we go, I just thought of something, and I want to put this in the show notes, but is there still that tool where if people own a stock, they can put it in and see how it is rated as far as BRI?
Yeah, it's www.inspireinsight.com.
Okay.
And that is a free tool. You can put in the ticker symbol, an ETF ticker symbol, a mutual fund ticker symbol, and it'll pull up instantaneously all the reports. And we don't just say, hey, this company has a negative score or a positive score. If they have a negative score, you can actually drill down and figure out why they have a negative score. And then when you click on it, it'll give you the source. Okay. It'll give you the website that you can go verify that Amazon does sell the abortion drug.
Yeah. So if people have gotten curious and they have their own investments in front of them, I'm going to put this link in there. You can go check for yourself so that you get a better understanding of what you own and why this conversation really matters. And I love that tool because it's private. You can just kind of see for yourself and do a little bit of your own research.
That's right.
Luke Andrews with Inspire Advisors, another incredible conversation. I love that you've got just a little passion about this.
Amen. Yeah.
Thanks, Luke, for being with us today.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks again for having me. It's been a little too long, but I was super excited to be here. Appreciate it.
You bet.
You've been listening to I Work for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field, but ultimately, I work for Him. This episode of I Work for Him is sponsored by SaferNet.com. PatriotMobile.com/I Work for Him. And the U.S. Christian Chamber 2026 Expo, found online at swc2026.com, code I Work for Him.
Thanks for listening to the I Work for Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work for Him Nation, and to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. While you're there, check out the Tapestry database, a growing directory of faith and work organizations. You can also follow us on social media at I Work for Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's I Work for Him and online at iworkforhim.com. I work, the number 4, him.com.